Oh, Captain, my Captain. This is Club Fantasy's DFS Showdown slate preview video. We are going to be previewing the Week 14 Thursday night football matchup between the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. I'm your host, Joshua Hudson. Hanging out backstage right now is our DFS expert, Austin Amandolia. Let's get into the preview. Welcome, everybody, to Club Fantasy's DFS Showdown slate preview video called Oh, Captain, My Captain. I am your host, Joshua Hudson. With me, as always, Mr. Austin Amandolia. Austin, how was your Thanksgiving, buddy?
It was pretty good. Nice and restful. How was yours?
Nice and restful. Day off of work, which I very much needed because this is all I do these days is work. But we're not here to catch up on that. We are here to talk football. Thursday night football this week, Green Bay Packers versus the Detroit Lions. We are going to help you set the most optimal DFS Showdown lineups, giving you the best captain plays, flex plays, and building it all out. But of course, first, Austin, tell everybody where they can play these showdowns. Jesus Christ, tongue twister all around today. That's what happens when it's my third show recording. Play these DFS Showdown slates against us here at Club Fantasy.
Yes, that is right. In the show description of this video, you can check a link to our DraftKings League where we have two contests that run every week, a Thursday night showdown slate and a contest for the main slate on Sundays. They are $2 contests, 12% entries, so it's a great way to practice the things we talk about in our DFS shows.
Hey, come and try to take our money. Or my money, which I'm usually either first or last. So if one of those things is going to happen, right? But hey, you know what? If you win, spend some of that at Trophy Smack. Check out our sister site, Women of Fantasy Football's partnership with Trophy Smack. Go to trophysmack.com/WOFF. It is championship season. We are coming up on the fantasy football playoffs. You, of course, are watching this for DFS purposes. So every week is championship week. So check out all of their championship belts, championship rings, trophies, wall smack to decorate your office, hallways, kids' rooms. It's all customizable, so you can design it however you would like. Bask in the glow of your championships and your winning ways. Celebrate the losers of your contests, your fantasy leagues. All of that can be had at trophysmack.com/WOFF. Any and all commissions that we make from this direct link go towards helping us support women in sports. We are lucky enough through Women of Fantasy Football to get credentialed passes to NFL media events, i.e. the Super Bowl, the draft, the combine, all of those things. Giving them, the ladies, the passes is great. We want to be able to help with expenses as well. So supporting us and using this link all goes towards that cause. So once again, head over to trophysmack.com/WOFF. That's WOFF. All right, Austin, let's get into these picks. And first and foremost, Captain Chalk. These are the chalky captains that everyone is likely to pick because they're just that damn good. It's been a roller coaster ride for me with Amon-Ra St. Brown this year. But you tell me why you like Amon-Ra this week against the Packers.
Yeah, I'm always a bit of a sucker to go after him in these showdown contests because he has the potential to have one of those games where he gets like ridiculous target share, 18. Like he has an 18 target game on the season. Absolutely bonkers. And he also is he's one of the leading receivers in the league in red zone touchdowns, which is huge for showdown slates. That's really how you can move up the board quickly, is if your captain is scoring multiple touchdowns. And the game environment is very interesting on this one. Even though the last time these two teams met, it was a defensive slog, the sports books are expecting this to be a little bit more offense heavy. It's at a 51.5 point total per ESPN bet, which makes me want to buy into the passing games. I know Detroit can get there in multiple different ways, but I like the idea of Green Bay actually pushing Detroit in this one because Detroit has not played a good offense in multiple weeks since they played the Green Bay Packers the last time. And so now is a good opportunity for the Lions to need to pass the ball to keep up with the Packers. Also, it's in a dome environment, so that tends to open up the pass game during these winter months.
Yeah, Amon-Ra scored a touchdown against the Packers the last time these teams played in Week 9. There were actually only 3 offensive touchdowns in that matchup in Week 9, 2 by the Lions and 1 late in the fourth quarter by the Packers. There also was a defensive touchdown from the Lions. But to your point, again, dome environment could very well be a little bit more pass happy. With that, let's get into some of the contrarian captain choices. These would be the mutineers that offer a little bit of upside and variety when you're heading into these larger tournaments. We talk about being in a dome, could be a little bit more pass happy. Let's talk about the inverse of this and why it could follow the same game script as Week 9 and why you like the running backs in this matchup, particularly Josh Jacobs, who's been on a bit of a heater over the past month or so of the season.
Yeah, so Josh Jacobs has been really good, especially recently in the season. The reason I like having him as a captain spot in this matchup is I can see a scenario where Green Bay comes in with something to prove and they decide we need to beat up on the Lions, and the way to beat them is going to be to try and beat them in the trenches, to play their own game, to say, you know what, let's be tougher than the Lions in the trenches and let's run the ball. I think this is also, it's going to be something that people don't do a lot because the Lions have been a really good run defense this year, particularly in recent weeks. However, they have played some hot garbage teams in recent weeks as well. They've played the Chicago Bears, who have refused to run the ball on many occasions this season, the Indianapolis Colts, who have been meh in the rush game, and some of their running numbers are buffered by Anthony Richardson. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars, who also are bad in the run game, they also shut down the Houston Texans run game, but they have 4 consecutive weeks going against teams that are just not good. And I think that is skewing some of the numbers in the recent narrative about the Lions in the run game, but the Packers have a good run game. So I like the idea of flipping the script here and saying, what happens if the Packers get ahead? They could just slow this game down with Josh Jacobs and try and grind it out. And if Josh Jacobs, if he scores 2 touchdowns and 100 yards, he could easily be optimal in this slate.
Yeah, and we've seen it with Jordan Love too. Like he's been putting up good passing numbers, but the touchdowns really haven't been there because they've been running the ball so much and so effectively that Jacobs is just piling up those rushing touchdowns this year. On the flip side to that, let's talk about the grinder for the Lions here, the touchdown machine that is David Montgomery.
Yeah, so the Packers have allowed the 10th most points to the running back position since week 10. So they are susceptible to opposing running backs. And the reason I like David Montgomery here is I think more people are going to want to play Jahmyr Gibbs in the captain spot than David Montgomery. And so it's an easy way to pivot. If you say, yeah, the Detroit Lions, they're legit, they're going to go be 12-1 after this, which I think is a fair argument to make. Like, I can definitely see a path where the Packers upset the Lions in this. I also recognize the sports books show that the Lions are favored. So they're projected to win. They do that. They're going to do it between their dual threat running backs. And I like the idea of saying, you know what, it's going to be David Montgomery this week. He's also been getting a decent amount of pass game volume, at times even more so than Jahmyr Gibbs. Last year, it was very clear that David Montgomery was the runner and Jahmyr Gibbs was the catcher. And that's kind of been nuanced this year. They play very similar roles. So you're also still going to get some of that receiving volume from David Montgomery. He didn't score any touchdowns last week. Let's say this week it regresses. He scores 2 touchdowns. Similar idea as Josh Jacobs. He can do the 2 touchdown, 100 yard and a few catch game. And if this game hits the under, that could easily be optimal in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it being a pivot from Jahmyr Gibbs because I'm going through and I'm looking at this show sheet and I'm like, fuck is Jahmyr Gibbs, man? Why are you hating on my boy like that? But But it makes a lot of sense because Jahmyr Gibbs is the hot commodity, right? He's the flashy guy. He scored 10 touchdowns this year. People are going to want to put him in a lineup, and he's likely more expensive. So a good way to get contrarian, pivot to a less expensive option that has similar upside. So I like it. All right, next category here is going to be the first mate, because every captain needs that reliable crew. These are going to be the standouts that maximize your lineups. Let's go back to the Packers here because we were talking a little bit pre-show. Jayden Reed has been a freaking headache for me as a Jayden Reed stan. I absolutely love his game, but every time I want to play him, he sucks. And every time I feel like I should sit him, he goes off. So you know what? This is why we play DFS. So I don't have anything to worry about when it comes to that. So talk to me about Jayden Reed and why you like him in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, in part, I like him because he did perform well against the Lions the last time they played. It's also just the idea that when you're looking at a showdown slate, you're looking for a one-game sample size. There, you can lean into some of the variance there. And honestly, like the Green Bay Packers receiver room is the epitome of variance. Like it is hard to predict what receiver is going to pop off on any given week. What we know, though, is that Romeo Doubs is out this week, which means you're going to see an uptick in volume for Jayden Reed, Christian Watson, and Dontavian Wicks. I personally don't trust Christian Watson, and so I'm going to lean more to Jayden Reed, and that kind of spoils somebody that we're going to talk about later, but I'm interested in Dontavian Wicks as well. The idea being that they should get more volume. I do also just think Jayden Reed, he has that big playability. They often are manufacturing touches for him so that he is getting high efficiency and high likelihood of success touches, and we did see him score 2 touchdowns last week. So he is getting in the end zone even on low volume. So it kind of backs up this idea that he's getting really high value and high efficiency touches. This is also kind of playing into a game script where if the Lions are ahead, the Packers are going to be throwing the ball. And it's not just like, oh, basic football. Like the Packers, statistically speaking, they throw the ball when they are behind. They run the ball when they are ahead. It's like, it is very clear, whereas some teams will like just keep pouring it on. They'll keep passing, like the Lions. They will pass the ball when they're ahead because they're pouring it on. There are some teams like the Panthers who will run the ball a lot when they're behind because they don't care. So it is actually notable that the Packers do the thing you would expect, where they pass the ball a lot when they're behind. They run it when they're ahead.
There you go. And Jayden Reed is kind of playing that Deebo Samuel role better than Deebo Samuel is this year. So there's that, which is why he's been doing so well in fantasy. 5 for 113 in week 9 against the Lions. So, all right, speaking of the Lions, let's talk a little bit about Jared Goff, because while he can throw 3 touchdowns in a game for only 80-something yards, he can also go for 145 and 1 touchdown like he did in week 9. So what do you like about him as a flex option this week?
Yeah, so some of this is like, if I'm playing this game, hitting the over and being back and forth, I just want him in my lineup. Like, the thing about Jared Goff is because of the way this offense works, like he could score 4 touchdowns and Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery both still get there in fantasy because they score receiving touchdowns, right? That's just the way this offense flows. It can be a very high volume offense and high scoring offense. Like we've seen them score 50 points on multiple occasions. I don't think they do that against the Packers defense because I think they're a little bit tougher, but I think there's a good chance that Jared Goff at least gets 20 points, which would be really good for your lineup. And if you're playing Amon-Ra St. Brown in your captain spot, or even Jahmyr Gibbs in your captain spot, I think it is a totally fair correlation to have Jared Goff in there as well. So it's just a reminder, like, don't shy away from Jared Goff. He's not a fun player to pick, but I think he's a safe fantasy player to pick, and he will be highly rostered, and I think very fairly so.
Yeah, and honestly, he's thrown more touchdowns this year than Jordan Love, who, quite frankly, has not been very good for fantasy. So there's that. All right, next section here is the deck scrubbers. These are going to be your cheaper punt play options that can make a lineup based on one play, limited opportunity. I want to move to the Packers here because you kind of teased them a little bit. Dontavian Wicks. Last week when Romeo Doubs was out with a concussion, Dontavian Wicks got a lot more run. For most of last year, it was when Christian Watson's out, Dontavian Wicks goes off, sees the high target share. kind of been similar this year, but they've kind of incorporated when Romeo Doubs is out, Dontavian Wicks, comes in and helps out there as well. So of the Packers wide receivers here, obviously Wicks likely being the fourth highest priced of these options. What do you like about Wicks and his inability to catch the football?
Well, until you get to that part, it's like, yeah, you just made the whole argument for me. Like, the idea is that Romeo Doubs is not going to be playing in this matchup, and Dontavian Wicks has seen higher target volume whenever Romeo Doubs has been out of the lineup. So honestly, like, that was the whole rationale here, and we need a cheap option, right? We need to be able to fit 100%. All the salary in. So I have this idea where I can, if I'm betting on this game to hit the over, if I'm betting on this game to hit the over and for the Lions to win, I'm putting St. Brown in my captain spot. I'm going to stack him with Jared Goff. I'm going to add another Lions player that we're going to talk about in a second. Plus, maybe I'll throw Jahmyr Gibbs in there, and then I'll have Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks on the other side of that matchup for the Green Bay side. And Dontavian Wicks gives me enough salary savings that I'm able to build an interesting, unique lineup while still leaving some salary on the table to get different.
My favorite thing about Dontavian Wicks, truthfully, are the memes that go around, and it's always that Moneyball one where it's like, here's Dontavian Wicks, elite target share, great route runner, can create separation. His lone default is that he's got bricks for hands and can't fucking catch. It's just chef's kiss. I freaking love it. Oh, I love it. All right. But speaking of guys that know how to command a target share, over the last month, Sam Laporta has been wheeling in those targets. The early part of the season, it was Jameson Williams was heavily involved. So they said, Sam Laporta who? It's been the inverse of late. So what do you like here about Sam Laporta as an option?
Yeah, he's been getting more utilization, and his DraftKings price is not yet reflecting that. Like, he's still one of the cheaper players on the slate. Packers have also been struggling against the tight end position in recent weeks. They've allowed the 6th most points to the position since week 10. And so there's a good matchup there. I just think he can easily go overlooked. Now, I don't think he's going to repeat what he did last week where he caught 2 touchdowns and 3 catches. But if the Packers are doing a good job covering St. Brown, Jameson Williams, I still think St. Brown is going to get open enough that he will be successful in this game, but it could open up more opportunities for Sam Laporta, especially as they're struggling. That linebacking core isn't really defending the tight end position super well. So it's really a matchup thing. And again, the salary is just so good. If this game is going to be high scoring like Vegas thinks, then I think Sam Laporta is going to need to be involved in making that happen.
I like it. Once again, your friendly reminder, you can play these showdown slates against us on DraftKings. Hit the link in the description on the video you're watching, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, or you happen to be listening on Apple or your favorite podcast network. It's a 12-team tournament, $2 entry. Come and get it, people. And then use that money to go shop at trophysmack.com/WOFF. See how we turn things around? I love it. It's great. Okay. My favorite segment. This is the Kraken. It's the lineup trap that sinks the ship. And Austin, every single time I get to this category, I'm always like, all right, what option is he going to put here? And then you throw me a curveball, and it's just like a generalized statement. And I'm like, all right, I need a little bit of explanation on this one, buddy.
Yeah, so this week it is the trap is to only bet on the Lions to win. And the thinking here is I think it could be really easy to buy into like, they have won 11 straight games, or they're about to win 11 straight games. It's like they're about to break the franchise record for most wins, consecutive wins. And they're so good. They've just been dominant lately. But again, they've played really bad teams the past 4 weeks. The last team that was a true test for them was the Packers in week 9. They beat up on them in Lambeau. I don't know that that's going to happen again. But if we go before that, the last big test before that was against the Vikings, and that one they squeaked out a 31-29 victory. So they have had tough battles this year. You know, we thought, oh, they're dominant whenever they beat the Cowboys 47-9, but now we have learned the Cowboys are frauds. They aren't good this season, right? So we haven't seen the Lions get tested in many weeks. I think they deserve all the flowers they've been getting. There's a good chance they do win this game. But if you're playing multiple lineups, I highly recommend having at least one or two, maybe like I would think of it as 10 to 20% of your lineups at least, considering a Packers win. Because I do think they're like these Thursday games, A, are weird, and B, this is the second time these teams have matched up. It is hard to sweep teams in the NFL. We often see these types of series get split because teams adjust after the first matchup. You get familiar with teams within your division. So I'm definitely going to be playing a lineup or two where I have Green Bay winning, and so I'll have 4 or 5 Packers players in my lineup, because I could conceivably see it, and I could see them coming in with something to prove in this matchup. They also, another thing that's important to note about Green Bay is they had their bye week 4 weeks ago. They've been better out of the bye week. Jordan Love's been making less crucial mistakes coming out of the bye week, like throwing a pick 6 the way he did against the Lions last time. So there's a lot of energy that you could buy in around the Packers pulling off the upset.
I like it. No, never put all your eggs in one basket. And that's the beauty of DFS. Love it. All right. Friendly reminder, head over to trophysmack.com/WOFF, WOFF. Get all of your championship-based and achievement-based needs, all that celebrating you, because that's what it's all about at Trophy Smack. Win, 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 no matter what, baby. All right. Austin, appreciate you as always. Go follow Austin at Austin_FFL. You can follow myself at the One Hudsonian. And of course, Club Fantasy at Club Fantasy FFL, the URL, clubfantasyffl.com. Stay tuned for Saturday when Austin's A-list, those would be his cash game picks for the Week 14 Sunday slate, will be hitting the website. And of course, DFS Academy, which will be dropping Friday morning on your podcast feeds as well as YouTube. With that, we say sayonara. See y'all next week.